reducing the deficit. That is how you deliver lasting economic security for working people. For as everyone knows, when it comes to living within your means, the sooner you start, the smoother the ride.
Meanwhile, in Athens tonight, banks are still shut, ordinary life gets harder and harder, and no one can make sense of what their politicians are up to.
For the moment, I can tell you that we live day to day. I wish the wise people in Europe will find an agreement, will find a solution, and they will end to an agreement of mutual benefit for all of us, because the country has to breathe, the country has to survive.
A confusing day here in Brussels. The Greeks came with no firm proposals, but progress has been made since, and things are very much still in play. A Grexit or a New Deal are now very close.
And as the country pauses to remember the victims of the 7/7 bombings, we recall some of those who died through the words of their loved ones.
If I'm on the Circle Line, I often stand in the place where I believe she stood, as a little act of defiance, I suppose.
But now, from Britain's fiscal position to Greece's, which, needless to say, is a lot worse and has not been solved today. Laura is in Athens for us. Evening, Laura.
Evening, Evan. Greeks have been told tonight they only have 5 days before the rest of the Eurozone might walk away. Here, just 48 hours after the people's decisive rejection of the EU's terms and conditions, banks are still closed, and a people so resolute simply don't know what their future holds. That will be decided not by them, but in Brussels, where today Europe's leaders have been trying to work out the next steps. Well, Duncan's there, and the final meeting of the day has just finished. A very confusing picture, Duncan. What on earth is going on?
Well, Laura, I've literally just came out 20 minutes ago from one of the shortest and one of the most dramatic press conferences I've ever attended. The leaders of the Eurozone stood up there, the leaders of Greece's lenders, and they put a really stark, really simple message on the table. You do a deal by Sunday, or you are out of the Eurozone. We've had so many final deadlines, so many 11th hours, so many things which have slipped throughout this crisis. You may say the Eurozone doesn't have much credibility at the moment, but if Sunday is not a hard deadline, I struggle to see how they would have any credibility. It's been a very topsy-turvy day here. The Greeks came to the finance ministers' meeting without any firm proposals. Everyone was feeling a bit grim at that point. Optimism rose later on the day on optimistic comments from the Italian Prime Minister on the idea that Greece was going to put in an offer tomorrow, a new proposal for a longer-term financing deal. Well, the European heads of government have met now and they've put their message on the table. They want an offer from Greece by Thursday. That will then be discussed on Sunday. And on Sunday, it will not just be the Eurogroup heads of state here, it will be the entire 28 members of the EU. When asked why they were all going to be here, why David Cameron would be here, when we're not Euro members, we were told by Juncker, the President of the Commission, because if the black scenario happens, this becomes a matter for the whole EU as we discuss the humanitarian aid Greece will now need. The creditors just used some of the strongest language I've ever heard them use in public. They said after Sunday, if there's not a deal in Greece, the country will be bankrupt, the banks will be insolvent, they will be needing humanitarian aid. 10 days ago, the Greeks walked out of the talks, put down their final thing, their final trump, the referendum. Well, today the creditors have just seen that, matched it, and raised again. Greece is now in an absolutely awful choice ahead of it. It either has to sign up to a deal, which is possibly going to be harder and tougher than the one they rejected in the referendum last Sunday, or it's game over and they're out of the Eurozone.
Duncan, thank you very much. Well, those frankly chaotic political machinations with a tough message grind on while families and businesses here grapple with life where they're already being squeezed tighter and tighter. No one you meet here believes Greece doesn't need to pull itself together, but there is anger at the lack of understanding of what life is really like. With me here is Vassilis Karayannis, who's a market commentator and expert on the Greek banks. If there is no deal, how long can the banks last?
It's a matter of hours. Actually, Greek banks cannot operate without the support of ECB. So definitely has to be a solution. The Greek government has to close the deal. Mr. Tsipras has to get the job done.
So the banks would run out of money within hours if a deal is not done this weekend?
Actually, we have a new deadline. There is a summit this Sunday, and I don't believe that there will be an issue till Sunday. However, if there is no agreement by Thursday and then by Sunday, I do believe that there will be an issue with the Greek banks, because on a daily basis they borrow about 130 billion euros from ECB. So you understand that unless there is the support of ECB, Greek banks cannot operate.
So every day they're digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole. But what then happens if there's no deal, the banks run out of money? What will happen to people here for whom life is hard enough already?
Actually, there will be a disaster. Definitely there will be no banknotes, but also the overall economy will be bankrupted as well, because most of Greek companies are running their businesses on the credit that is provided by Greek banks. So you realize that definitely there has to be a deal by next Sunday.
But given how chaotic the politics have been, it is likely that a deal cannot be done. There's such strong language coming from the Eurozone tonight. If there isn't a deal, what happens? A return to the drachma? I mean, you say it would be a disaster, but what would happen?
It seems that the realism came back, and I do believe that I was pessimistic as you are till when I first heard the results of a referendum. But when I heard Mr. Tsipras' speech, he was a bit calmer. He tried to build on the unity of Greek people. The following day, he sacked Mr. Varoufakis, who was not the right person for the job, and then he convened the Council of Political Leaders. It seems that he's turning the ship to the right direction, but it's very difficult. This government came on power based on a populistic agenda. It's very difficult for them to turn the ship to the right direction, to realism. So you understand that, yes, there are a lot of risks, but there will be a disaster if we don't have a deal.
Okay, well, the clock is ticking very loudly now. Thank you so much for joining us here on a rather windy Athens rooftop. We do now have new deadlines after so many before. This country's been through so much in the last just couple of weeks. And in one sense, the fundamentals have not changed. They're still bankrupt without the rest of Europe's support. The economy is still shrinking while politicians talk, and there's still no clear way forward. Even though, no question, this is the closest moment yet to an actual exit from the euro, which seems to be tonight a system that's just not built to cope with this kind of stress. Evan.
Laura, thank you very much.